Welcome to the Side Ventures series by Sony Docs. Hi, everyone. So before we dive into this episode, I wanted to let you know that I actually interviewed Dr. Ilana Yurkiewicz in a previous episode in a different series on Somi Docs. So that one is called Somi Docs Conversations, and I will link that episode in the show notes in case you want to listen to that episode before you listen to this one. For that reason, it doesn't have the same intro as the other episodes Inside Ventures have. So this is Dr. Ilana Yurkiewicz. I'm super excited to have her sitting across from me on a Zoom because she just recently published a book that I have in front of me called Fragmented.
I'm Ilana Yurkiewicz. I'm a clinician at Stanford University. I practice primary care and oncology. And yeah, that's me with makeup. I've also been a science and medical journalist for the past 10 plus years, combining a career in medicine and a career in writing. And so I've written many articles. This is my first book. I wrote the book Fragmented, A Doctor's Quest to Piece Together American Healthcare, which just came out. Just depending on when you're watching this, it came out in July of 2023. And it is a book that makes the case that fragmentation, or what I define as the insertion of gaps into a patient story by design, is the root cause of our healthcare system's failings.
This is Fragmented, and you traditionally published it. So I would love to hear about the traditional publishing process. Was it a process that you enjoyed?
I did. I really did. It was a long process and a hard process. So let me give that qualifier. I don't think you can write a book if it's just this thought that you think you can do with everything else. I mean, you really need to devote yourself to the task. But I really I felt like I needed to write this book. So I will share a little bit of the backstory of how to create a book through traditional publishing outlets, because I learned a lot of this as I went. The first step actually was getting an agent, and you can either query agents yourself. In my case, I felt fortunate after I published a lot of articles. So after an article, one of my articles came out, I got in touch with agents who kind of asked me, are you interested in writing a book? You get an agent, then you write a book proposal. Now, what is a book proposal? A book proposal is actually a really long document. Mine was 50 something pages, double spaced, that lays out your introduction, like what is the book about, that lays out a marketing plan, like why will people want to read this and how are you planning to get people to read this, lays out how you're going to organize it into chapters, and even gives a sample chapter. So a proposal itself takes a while to put together. In retrospect, I am so glad I spent the time on it because it gave me a blueprint. I followed my chapter outline very closely, and it gave me that blueprint so I didn't get lost later. Once you have a proposal, your agent shops it around to different publishers, and you end up making a deal with a publisher who's interested. And then you write the book. Then the next part is being by yourself a lot, to be honest, and sitting at your computer. When I was writing my book, it was a combination of narratives, so stories that had happened in my career, analysis and research. And so, from the research part, I was making phone calls, I was interviewing sources like you, and including that in the book. But a lot of it is still being by yourself and just writing. And then I went through, I think it was two rounds of editing after I submitted the final version, the final first draft rather, to my publisher, trying to just get everything really, really tight and done. And the whole process, I would say, from proposal to the book being done, I started the proposal in early 2020 during COVID. It was 2+ years, that whole process of proposal to finishing the final edits.
Yeah, it's a long process, I can say firsthand, because we traditionally published as well. We wrote what we bring to the practice of medicine, Dr. Kimberly Leibowitz Green and I, and 30 plus other women physicians. It is a long process. How do you market the book?
So part of it is your publisher does help you with that.
Okay.
Your publisher ideally has a marketing team, and they work with you in the months coming up to the book's launch and think about ways to market it. So they think about, for example, placing op-eds in magazines that touch on themes of the book. They think about interviews that I, as the author, can be doing to talk about the book. They think about events in bookstores to talk about the book. But a lot of it still comes from the author. You know, I have a wonderful publisher in Norton, and they've done so much for me in terms of marketing. But you do have to market a lot yourself. You know, the author, I think, can sell the book best, and you arrange other interviews, you know, yourself, and I use social media pretty heavily to talk about the book, and I'm hoping, you know, every interview I do, I try to touch a little bit of a different audience. So sometimes it's very focused on healthcare providers. You know, sometimes it's very, very focused on just everyday patients. And so I try to market that way by touching a lot of different slices of readership.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I was at the writing and social media for healthcare professionals at Harvard Medical School, it was a conference that was offered pre-COVID. I went there 3 years in a row. And the first year I was there, I was in shock with the publishers when they said, you know, we're usually not even going to look your way unless you've got a social media following. It became really evident that they really just would love to have the book sell itself if you're coming to them with a like pre-established, you know, audience made of fans. So
it really helps. It helps to build up your audience well before the book. So for me, I mean, I've been doing journalism for a while. And so I think a lot of my audience came that way from following other writing that I've done. But I did include in my proposal that I'm active on social media and that I can market it on, you know, these different platforms.
right.
And that really helps.
And how did you get active with media initially?
With medical journalism?
Yeah.
Have you ever wanted to write a nonfiction book, a memoir perhaps, or a health-related advice book? How about self-help?
In this session, we're going to go over how to find what your readers want to read and find the overlap between what you hope to write and what the reader's expectations are.
The first time I did this, it took only 67 days to go from my final draft through 2 professional edits and a killer cover design to being uploaded on all platforms and available for sale everywhere.
No matter how tranquil your specialty may be, you can write a medical thriller.
In this course, we'll discuss what an op-ed is, various approaches to structuring a piece, resources to help you research where to place op-eds, how to pitch an op-ed, and just as important, how to follow up on those pitches.
I've published 20 novels and 25 novellas with 4 writing awards in fantasy, thrillers, and romantic suspense under the pseudonym C.B. Samet. I love writing action adventure with happy endings.
I'm going to be teaching you why and how leveraging social media can make you a more successful author.
We're going to go over some of the differences between adult and children's books, including writing, illustration, editing, self-publishing, and marketing.
Did you know you can publish your book even if it's not finished yet and get paid while writing it? I'm Dr. Maria Sembra, a multi-genre award-winning author, and I'll take you through it step by step.
In my talk, we'll be discussing what exactly is medical writing, the benefits of a career in medical writing, and steps you can take if you're interested in becoming a medical writer.
I'm going to use everything I learned in Hollywood to teach you about the nature of structure, narrative, and storytelling.
And I hope to show you how literary aptitude translates to medical settings, and how it just might hold the key to reconnecting you with the purpose that drew you to medicine.
I will teach you how to market yourself as a health and medical expert so you can earn money as a freelancer.
We'll talk about famous main characters like Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, Elizabeth Bennet from Pride and Prejudice, and dissect what makes them great and how we can use that information to create our own story-worthy heroes that readers will love and root for.
I'm excited to share all of this with you and more.
You can purchase access to this conference at doctorsonsocialmedia.com/conferences. Now back to our show. And how did you get active with media initially?
With medical journalism?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was interested in science journalism all the way back in college. I always had a suspicion or an inkling that I was going to go into medicine, that I was going to go to medical school, but I always really liked writing for the public as well. And I think in retrospect, it's because the same skills are at play in the exam room and on the page, which is you're breaking down complex information and you're making it accessible and digestible to everyday people. And so that's what got me interested in science and medical journalism. So when I was in college, I was a writer and then editor in chief of I went to Yale for undergrad. That was called the Yale Scientific Magazine. And then I did a fellowship after college where I was doing science journalism for a newspaper. And then I was freelancing kind of since then throughout medical school, throughout all of my training. I was doing columns. I wrote for Scientific American as a blog columnist for 4 years. And then I was freelancing for different outlets.
Okay, based on that quick follow-up question, should doctors seek out reimbursements when they write articles for outlets like the ones you mentioned?
Usually, yes. I will say when you are just starting out, it might be a little more challenging, and it really depends on the outlet. I will share, rather, for the most part, I have been reimbursed for all of my writing. I'm thinking back, when I was just starting out and I started blogging, it was on a personal blog. I mean, it was literally IlanaYurkiewicz.com. That was before my blog was picked up by Scientific American. I did not get reimbursed for that. But then it got picked up and then, it became more of a side career for me. And so, you can ask. Doctors should not be shy about asking when they pitch a story. That is fully expected. And it is okay to say no to an opportunity, that ends up not being an opportunity because it's not reimbursed.
I like that you stressed that there was a part where you were not reimbursed. I think it's really important for me, for you, for people that are reimbursed for a lot of their work. I think it's important for us to remind everyone out there that everyone starts somewhere and that it's okay to not be reimbursed, at least initially. And I also always say, opportunities come and sometimes there can be other factors other than financial that you're gaining. Like if you're gaining incredible exposure, sometimes it really matters less that you're making, right? That you're making money on the article if it leads to many more opportunities that will be reimbursed.
Right. I completely agree. So you have to figure out what is important to you. What are you trying to get out of writing something? Are you trying to build an audience? Are you trying to make a lot of money? I mean, they're different things. Often they do go together, and I think that's the best case scenario. But it's a little bit of a vicious cycle initially because when you pitch, let's say, and you're trying to freelance a piece, they will want to see that you've published before. And well, it's like, how do I publish then? Because
right. The chicken or the egg.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why, I share very freely that initially I was just posting on IlanaYurkiewicz.com for free,
right.
but that got the interest of editors, and later that turned into more opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because I'm such a proponent of docs and any other professional people building websites that are at least function as portfolios. But then again, this is why I work on SoMe Docs at doctorsonsocialmedia.com is that I'm trying to make it easy to have like this unified space that organizes physician writing. And this way, anybody that needs an expert resource or an expert writer or whatever it is can just come in and get samples of the work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Did you pitch the book several times? How long did it take before someone actually accepted your pitch?
So I felt very lucky throughout this process, actually. Once I had an agent, I knew what I wanted to write about. And so I pitched it to my agent first. And I was like, it's going to be called Fragmented. I didn't have the subtitle yet. But the book actually was an expansion of an article I wrote. So the very first chapter it had been published, a form of it had been published before, but I knew I wanted to write about more than medical records. Like that was just, to me, it felt like the tip of the iceberg. And I knew there was a whole book about fragmentation that went beyond medical records. And so that's how I pitched it to my agent. And they were excited about it and said, write up a proposal. And then the agent does send it out to multiple publishing houses. But no, I mean, it was my original idea. It was my original proposal. I know authors sometimes have to do this. They have to write multiple proposals because there's just not a lot of interest in the first one, or they need to edit it in some way that makes it more interesting to a general audience. I got fortunate that it was my first proposal, and that's what ended up getting me a book deal.
Fantastic. And then do you find that it's worth the cost, right? Knowing that it's usually very pricey to hire a publicist. Do you find that it's worth the cost to also then get a publicist on top of that?
So through traditional media houses, through traditional publishing houses, they pay you. So, they pay you in advance to write the book, and then it comes with the publishing house. Like the book deal comes with a marketing, it comes with your editor, it comes with a marketing team, it comes with your publicist. So that was actually all provided to me by the publishing house.
Right.
Very, very different when you self-publish. And so honestly, I'm not the best person to speak on whether it's worth the cost in terms of self-publishing. I think I would advise, and I do advise, really, what are you trying to get out of the book? You can earn all of that back if you self-publish and it reaches a wide audience. If you're interested more in exposure, sometimes it's still worth the cost. But, I would emphasize, if you go through a traditional publishing house, it is something that you are compensated. You are compensated for your time and work.
Amazing. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing both about the process of writing this book and about the actual topics in the book, which are so very important to healthcare today. So again, Fragmented by Dr. Ilana Yurkiewicz, and I'm sure that you could get it through Amazon, and we're going to build a page soon for you on SoMeDocs at doctorsonsocialmedia.com. So anybody that wants can click in and just buy it. So thanks.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated the conversation. You can get it anywhere books are sold, hardcover, Kindle, and an audiobook that I narrated myself.
I love that. And so do you have any specific ask other than please purchase my book?
I would say I really want people to seriously engage with the ideas in the book. I think we can organize. I think change can happen when enough people, share the same language of what isn't working so that we can come to real solutions. And so my ask is to take it seriously and advocate within your communities, within your practices, for some of these ideas that will help you and help all of our patients.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening.